This session will be chaired by Dr. Sarah Salim and Dr. Leila Ladakh. Dr. Sarah Salim is an endowed professor and section head of population and reproductive health in the Department of Community Health Sciences at the Aga Khan University, an epidemiologist and global public health expert. She has led numerous national and international research projects, including large cluster and individually randomized trials. For over 20 years, she has served as Pakistan's international principal investigator for the Global Network for Women's and Children's Health Research funded by NICST. Dr. Salim also directs the WHO Collaborating Center for Research Policy and Development in Sexual and Reproductive Health and leads the HRP Hub for Eastern Mediterranean region, supporting research capacity and strengthening across 22 countries. Dr. Leila Ladakh is an associate professor and associate dean research and graduate education at the Aga Khan University School of Nursing and Midwifery, Pakistan. She also holds a joint appointment with Department of Pediatrics and Child Health. She earned her PhD from the University of Sydney, Australia, where she serves as an honorary faculty member. Besides teaching, she provides research mentorship to the master's and PhD students, residents, and faculty. Her research focuses on mortality, morbidity, and long-term outcome among children, adolescents, and young adults living with chronic illness, as well as impact on their parents and families, and the influence of social determinants of health. She also incorporates artificial intelligence and clinical decisions support system to improve healthcare outcomes and advance educational practices. It is my pleasure to invite Dr. Leila Ladakh and Dr. Sarah Salim to the stage to lead this session. Please join me in welcoming our co-chairs.
Assalamu alaikum everyone and a very good afternoon. Welcome to this Women in Science conference. And after lunch, I'm hoping that we all are energetic, fresh, hopefully not drowsy. So in this 1 hour session or so, I, along with Dr. Sarah Salim, will serve as chair for this session, focusing on healthcare systems. So we all understand that strong healthcare systems are essential and they play a vital role in terms of improving the health outcomes, quality of life, in terms of the population health and quality care. So we have our presenters today who are going to share their findings, their research. So the first presenter is Dr. Shepar Mirza, who is an associate professor, biology, Lahore University of Management Sciences, LUMS, from genomics to public health. Dr. Shepar Mirza is an associate professor in the Department of Life Sciences at LUMS and holds a PhD in molecular microbiology from the University of Alabama at Birmingham. She has previously worked at the University of Texas School of Public Health, London School of Health and Tropical Medicine and institutes in the Netherlands. Her research focuses on infectious diseases, pneumococcal immunity, and the evolution of antimicrobial resistance. She produced the first evidence on pneumococcal vaccine responses in individuals with type 2 diabetes. Her lab investigates bacterial carriage, neonatal sepsis, the impact of extreme heat on pregnancy outcomes, and sexual and reproductive health in the context of HPV vaccination. With this, I welcome Dr. Shepar Mirza. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bhutta and Dr. Das, for inviting me today to present my 30-some years of journey. Yeah, I'm letting you guys in on my age, but to present my journey through the double helix, which I call the spiral staircase. Interestingly, that journey actually started right here at the Aga Khan University. So this was my first job or my first position immediately after my master's. So with a very humble beginning from the Karachi University. So I'm going to introduce my group first. because I don't want to forget all the acknowledgements in the end. So this is my great group that's working with me. You can see they are all predominantly women, except for a couple of guys here. Not saying that the guys are not worthy of it, but these are the only guys that I have currently working with me. Very hardworking people. Whatever I do, whatever I have done and I have published, it's because of these great minds. A lot of my projects actually started from something as simple as a master's or the senior year project in my lab. In addition to these people, I have a lot of other people who I need to accredit for all the work that I'm doing. That includes Chuktai Lab, Shalimar Hospital, Institute of Public Health, Punjab, Sheikh Zayed Hospital, and the expanded program on immunization, the government of Sindh and government of Punjab. Now with this, I'm going to take you all the way back to 1991, where I actually started this journey. So this was a very humble beginning, and my master's project was very simple. The only thing that I was requested to do was to isolate DNA, both the chromosomal and the plasmid DNA, and transform E. coli. And at that time, and given the resources in Karachi University, which are very limited, I mean, you can't even imagine how limited the resources are. You guys are very fortunate to be here and working at Al Khan University. The limited resources actually didn't let me too far. But it lit a candle in my heart, and I wanted to do something more in terms of DNA, in understanding the molecule and understanding the functioning of this molecule. And luckily enough, an opportunity came at Al Khan University. My first interview was taken by Dr. Anwar Wakar. This is an interesting incident, so I'm really going to talk about it. What happened is that he asked me a couple of questions, which I think I answered correctly, and then he asked me a question. He said, what will happen to DNA if I squeeze it? And honestly speaking, I didn't know what will happen to DNA if you squeeze it. Now I know, but at that time I didn't know. I didn't get the job. Later on, another opportunity came by, and I was so sure. I read up on my DNA, I read up everything on my DNA, and I arrived for my interview. This interview was taken by Dr. Rabia Hussain. And the first question that she asked me was, how do you differentiate between a gram-positive and a gram-negative bacteria? All my enthusiasm went down because I had worked on DNA. I had worked really hard on DNA. And of course, the champagne lost its bubbles. But because it was a simple question, I was able to answer, and I was able to answer a couple more questions that she had. And finally, I was hired. And this was, again, a female-led lab. Everybody in that lab was female except for one guy. And of course, it was being led by an extremely intelligent, incredible woman, Dr. Rabia. And yes, that's me. Doesn't look like me, but honestly speaking, it is me. And Dr. Rabia's lab was investigating several different things about tuberculosis. In the first lecture, Dr. Zara mentioned something about tuberculosis, that it continues to plague Pakistan. And the problem with it is that it's very hard to track transmission. We are still looking for the missing men of tuberculosis. And Dr. Rabia's lab was trying to establish methods to understand the transmission of tuberculosis, to be able to investigate outbreaks. But there was no single tool that was able to do that. And during that time, a remarkable discovery was made in Netherlands, where Dr. Jan van Emden actually used this very simple tool that has been present in tuberculosis for a very long period of time. It's called the insertion element. And this insertion element was used to differentiate between the strains. Dr. Rabia won a grant. I was sent to Netherlands to understand how to do this technique. I learned the technique. And the funny thing is that when I produced my first autorad and showed it to Van Emden, he looked at it and he said, you must have contaminated your samples. And the reason was that every single strain that I had isolated was so similar to the other strain, it was hard to differentiate. So the insertion element actually didn't prove to be so useful for differentiating between strains in Pakistan. But when I went back to the United States and I used the same technique for investigating outbreak in correctional facilities among the inmates, it turned out to be a very powerful tool to differentiate between the strains. We could even identify the geographic regions where these people were coming from and identify other people who were infected with the same strain. Later on, this technique was further modified into speleotyping and beacons and all of that. But this was the first step towards understanding the epidemiology of tuberculosis. In addition to that, Dr. Abe was also involved in a lot of immunological projects, vaccine projects, and I took part in those as well, but this was my pet project. Then it was time to move. I moved to the Department of Pathology. This was my team. The circle, the face in red circle is Ms. Bushra. She's in Australia at the moment. There was another guy with us, Tariq. And the team, the trio, actually started to work on using DNA for something different. So I'm going to tell you a lot of things, or a lot of ways how I used, misused, and abused DNA. Now, in this case, it was all about diagnostics. I'm coming from a very basic science background, and I didn't know how to use DNA for diagnostics. And then, of course, in the leadership of Dr. Ghani, Farooq Ghani, and Dr. Jahan Arapal, I was able to set up or establish 3 methods for prenatal diagnosis. So we set up methods for prenatal diagnosis of beta thalassemia, cystic fibrosis, and Down syndrome. And the good thing about all of these 3 methods was that all of them used ARMS technology, which was allele-specific primers. So it was basically isolating DNA, but isolating this DNA was far more difficult than isolating DNA from the whole bacteria. Here we have to take human sample. We had to process that human sample, and there were 2 human samples that we were actually working with. One was the CVS, or the chorionic villus sample, and the other one was blood. And we were supposed to isolate DNA from both of them. While we were working on that, Dr. Sue Fisher-Hoke, who was my new mentor and my new head, she came up with this brilliant idea of using the same technique for early diagnosis of infectious diseases. And infectious diseases are kind of tricky, because what if the bacteria is dead? You know, you may still find the DNA, but the bacteria is dead. So culture has to be the gold standard for that. You can use DNA methods, but the culture still remains the gold standard for diagnosis of infectious diseases, especially infectious diseases which are cultivatable. These are my 2 mentors, and here's the book that they wrote, The Level 4 Hunters of CDC. In fact, Sue and Joe McCormick actually was the head of the principal investigator of special pathogen branch at CDC. Under their supervision, we developed few more tests, and those include tuberculosis diagnosis from blood and lymph nodes. We also developed a method for diagnosing hepatitis C, hepatitis B. In fact, I was working with hepatitis C. There was a gastroenterologist, I'm sure he's still here, Dr. Saeed Hamid. And Dr. Saeed Hamid was very interested in developing this PCR methodology for diagnosis of hepatitis B. So together we developed these methods, which included isolation of RNA for, for hepatitis C from serum, isolation of DNA for hepatitis B, and then came CCHF. I mean, I feel extremely proud that I was able to set up this methodology here in the absence of BSL-4 facility. And what happened is that I remember it was Christmas Eve when Sue called me from US Embassy. And she said that wear as many gloves as you can, wear a mask. I'm bringing some very hot serum samples. These were 2 surgeons who came down with CCHF as they were operating on a lot of CCHF patients in Quetta. They were airlifted from Quetta. They came to Aga Khan, and then their blood was taken, and Sue brought me that blood, and she said, I want you to do 2 things. I want you to run a PCR and tell me if the viral RNA is there, and I want you to do a lyse on it and tell me if they have the antibodies, if they have made the antibodies yet or not, because they could be in a very acute state of infection. They had already started bleeding. We did a PCR on it. I spent the entire night working on optimizing this methodology because it's an RNA virus. So we made the cDNA, I did the endpoint PCR, and sure enough, at around 3 a.m. in the morning, I sent her an image of the gel, and it was positive for CCHF RNA. And then these people were put on ribavirin. Ribavirin was also airlifted from Singapore, and this is how we were able to save their lives. These are the 2 surgeons. And this actually became a chapter in her book called Level 4's Hunters of CDC Hunters of Level 4 Viruses. The paper actually came out in 1996 in Lancet. This was my very first publication that came out. I didn't even know what publication mean until it came out. And people started telling me that you're very lucky that your first publication came out in Lancet. So all those aspiring clinical researchers, please continue to do what you're doing. This is a very good lesson to learn, that no matter how small the job is, if you do it right, you are going to get rewarded. Well, so this journey actually ended here with a lot of research that we did with Bojo and Sue McCormick. A lot of my work got published. And with all of these publications, I was now getting really tired of doing the same thing over and over. I wanted to do something different. So I decided to do my PhD. I moved to University of Alabama for doing my PhD. That's my very favorite spot in the botanical gardens of University of Alabama. And I always used to go there when my experiments didn't work, which means 5 days out of 7. Frustration sits at every research bench. So if you guys are trying to do research and it's not working, just know that it doesn't work for anyone. It's a very selfish thing, but just keep at it. It is going to work, and you will be rewarded. Here, my job was slightly different. So my PhD advisor, he was working on pneumococcal infection. So he said, you will have to divorce tuberculosis. And I was not ready to do that because I had already made a lot of headways in tuberculosis. He said pneumococci is actually as sexy as tuberculosis, but it's easy to work with. There is still a lot of funding. People are working on vaccine. So he had me convinced that it's okay to drop tuberculosis and start working on pneumococci. He was working on some really interesting problems in pneumococci, so I think I'm addressing all the physicians, and you all know that pneumococci is a gram-positive pathogen. It's a diplococci. The most important thing about pneumococci is that it's a very good colonizer. So carriage is a prerequisite for pneumococcal infections. If you prevent carriage, you prevent disease in pneumococci. And my boss was, or my advisor at that time, was working on carriage. He wanted to know how pneumococci evade carriage and actually invade into the lung or into other deeper and more sterile tissues like brain, like blood, causing meningitis and sepsis and bacteremia. And what happens here is that in addition to mucus, there are lots of other proteins that are lining the mucosal surface. And among those proteins are polymeric immunoglobulin A. There is also a lot of lactoferrin, and lactoferrin is also present abundantly in neutrophils. It is also present in colostrum. And he wanted to know, how does pneumococcus survive in the presence of such vicious proteins? So I started to work with lactoferrin. Initially, it was very hard because Mark Judres, another scientist who was also a competitor, he had already published that pneumococci binds to lactoferrin. But what we didn't know is where exactly does it bind. He showed that there is a protein on the surface of pneumococci that is constitutively expressed, and pneumococci preferentially bind to that protein. We started to investigate a little bit more, and we wanted to see if we can prevent this binding of PSP of pneumococci on the surface of these cells, and if the binding is actually mediated by this protein, because this is the only protein on the surface of pneumococci that is constitutively expressed. Constitutively expressed means that it's not differentially expressed, it's always there. No matter what growth phase pneumococci is, PSP is always there. So we started to look at it, and what I found was that, sure enough, lactoferrin binds to PSPA, and you see PSPA is present all over the pneumococci. And now how do I show that it is only PSPA that pneumococci is binding to? So once again, it was time to abuse DNA. What I did is that I made a deletion mutant in PSPA, and I used the same bacteria. So deleting PSPA from bacteria doesn't kill bacteria. They still survive. They are happily surviving. And what I showed is that you see this binding actually disappeared if I delete PSPA from the bacteria. However, if I delete a different protein, which is also present on the surface of pneumococci, it does not inhibit or it does not restrict the binding of lactoferrin, lactoferrin still continues to bind. Now, the other question was, once it binds, what does it do? So my hypothesis was that maybe, because it's an iron-binding protein, maybe bacteria is taking iron from this protein. But unfortunately, later on, I figured out that iron is actually toxic to pneumococci because it takes pneumococci into Fenton and West reaction. Pneumococci doesn't have catalase, so it ends up killing pneumococci. So then the question was that then what does it do? If it's not acquiring iron from it, then what exactly is it doing? And to my surprise, so you see, another important lesson to learn is that negative results can be very important results. So to my surprise, I found that pneumococci gets killed if it binds to lactoferrin. And you know, the most remarkable thing across all of these strains was that killing was different in each one of these strains. And when I investigated it a little bit further, I found that each one of these strains have different density of PSPA, which means that PSPA was somehow protecting the bacteria from dying by lactoferrin. So it binds to lactoferrin so that lactoferrin doesn't reach its target. So moving along, we did some more experiments, and I found that lactoferrin not only binds, but it feeds lactoferrin. PSPA doesn't only bind to the lactoferrin, but it also feeds it to a self-surface associated proteases. And this protease is present on the surface of pneumococci, which is called PRTA. I deleted PRTA, and we showed that when you delete PRTA, the lactoferrin is no longer cleaved. And if lactoferrin remains as the whole lactoferrin molecule, it continues to kill. So now PSPA is protecting in two different ways. One, it binds, and two, it feeds it to a protease, so the protease degrades it. Once it gets degraded, then it can no longer kill bacteria. So these studies of mine were published in Infection and Immunity, and I finished my PhD with 3 publications and moved on to being a faculty at University of Texas in Houston. In University of Texas in Houston, I had to switch gears again. And because it was the School of Public Health, they were more interested in preventive studies. So what I did is that I started to look for different things. So another lesson, that do not get married to one project or one bacteria or one idea. You have to keep moving around. But the expertise that you have gained from your previous results or from your previous experiments or from your previous exposures will always be very relevant and very helpful to what you're going to do next. And here I used my immunology background, and I started to look for the immune fragility in those with type 2 diabetes, which make them so susceptible to respiratory tract infections. And of course, the respiratory tract infection that I was interested in was pneumococcal infection, because pneumococcal infection kills a lot of diabetics. And in the United States, it's recommended that they should be vaccinated against pneumococci and influenza. But I'm not going to go into more details because, of course, this takes us away from my journey into the double helix. So I ended my studies here. I left my faculty position in Houston, moved back to Pakistan. Here is a snapshot of Lahore University of Management Sciences. If you guys ever cross through Lahore, please stop by at LUMS. It's a beautiful place, a great place to work. Even though I'm from Karachi and I thought my heart is with Karachi and I will never be able to live anywhere but Karachi. But after spending 21 years, I was open to living anywhere else as long as it is in Pakistan. So I decided to stay in Lahore, and I started working here. So my lab is involved in lots of different studies. We are still looking at the immune responses in diabetes. We are still working on maternal health. We are actually moving into this arena of maternal health and heat. We are also working with pneumococcal vaccine, and we are trying to make a case for recommendation for pneumococcal vaccine to individuals who either have cardiovascular disease or diabetes. So again, this time I decided to use DNA for surveillance. So I have used DNA for basic science, I've used DNA for diagnostics, now it was time to use DNA for surveillance. And here what we did, and there was a lot of news, and I'm sure you guys are also aware of the fact that the pneumococcal vaccine, it has about 13 serotypes. the one that we are using in Pakistan, 13 to 15 serotypes. And you see the pneumococcal infection rates going down by those vaccine serotypes, but then infection is rising from non-vaccine serotypes. So that calls for surveillance. And in Pakistan, the surveillance is really low. So we took this project from Singers, and I have collaborators here as well, who's Dr. Imran Nisar, and we started to look into the pneumococcal genomics. When we looked into pneumococcal genomics, I'm not going to burden you with all of this information, but the only thing that is very important is the fact that there are lots that if you do whole genome sequencing of pneumococci, pneumococcal genome is so varied that you can actually group it into the global pneumococcal sequence types, the sequence types, and the serotypes, and then you can start combining the global pneumococcal sequence types into serotypes and start looking for different serotypes within those groups. So what we found was that some of the serotypes, some of the global pneumococcal sequence types were actually very sincere to the serotypes that were present within them. And whether you look at pre-PCV13 or post-PCV13, you will still find the same serotypes. Whereas in other global pneumococcal sequence types, you can see that the sequence types have a large number of different capsular types which are included in those sequence types. And these are the sequence types which you can see are also highly drug resistant. So this turned out, use of DNA in surveillance turned out to be an extremely important and a valuable tool to look at the changing epidemiology of pneumococci under the influence of not only vaccine, but also antibiotics. Moving along, we also found that pneumococci is evolving in all different ways. So pneumococcal capsular types were also switching. And to understand the switch in capsular type, you can see this is the global pneumococcal sequence type, which remained the same. If you look at the sequence type also remained the same. But in pre- and post-vaccine era, it had acquired a different capsule, which is now unidentified capsule or non-typable capsule. In some cases, the pre- and post serotype almost remain the same, so the 19A and 7C, but in some cases, it was different. However, the sequence types always remain the same. In some cases, the serogroup also remained the same, so it remained in the serogroup of 6, but the only thing that changed was 6C and 6D. So the capsular type changed, but the serogroup remained the same. The importance of these findings is that in some cases, the vaccine is going to work, but in some cases, because your serotype has changed, your pneumococcal vaccine is not going to work. Putting all of this information together, you can look at the CIRCOS. Don't try to stress your brains too much. You just had food, so it's not a good thing to do that. However, what I'm trying to show in this CIRCOS is that you see there is a lot of transition in pneumococcal strains between pre- and post-vaccine era or pre- and post-vaccine time, along with these serotypes. And because these serotypes are changing, you can see that a lot is changing, which includes antimicrobial resistance, which also include their sequence types. And the pre-vaccine strains were not as antimicrobial resistant as the post-vaccine strains are. So all of this information is actually really important for the physicians who have to make these decisions every day of empirical treatment of children or of adults who are coming in with infections. So I think this is my last slide, and with this, I conclude my journey. And here is the cartoon. So this is my hero. This is an Ataman. And I don't think you guys even know what Adamant was. But Adamant, every time she's given a huge task, she would always tell in her heart, I know I will, and I know I will. And I think that's the very important message, that no matter how hard the task is, as long as you keep telling yourself that you know you will be able to do the task. The other important lessons that I learned was the importance of negative results. Don't ever throw the negative results down the drain. Every negative result is really important. Try to interpret it rather than trying to figure it out, try to interpret it. Then critical thinking. The reason why I was not able to answer Dr. Anwar Bakar's question about squeezing DNA is because I was not critically thinking. And over a period of time, I learned this lesson of critical thinking from Sue Fisher-Hope. She was always telling us that you don't have to act like a technician, you have to act like a scientist. So everyone, no matter where you are working, you always have to act like a scientist. So critically think, critically analyze every single thing, even a nature paper, because there are problems with nature papers also. There are retractions in nature papers as well. Importance of curiosity. Always be curious. Always continue to question yourself and question the data. And take feedback positively. Extremely important thing. Initially, when Dr. Abia used to give me a poor feedback, I used to cry. But I don't cry anymore, because I think that there's a lot of value in negative feedback. Also, you just have to go home, sleep over it, think about it, and then come back all refreshed. I have a lot more people to thank, but I think I don't have space here to name all of those people who have been such an incredible people during this journey of mine. But I have to thank my husband for putting up with me. A lot of time he just tells me, I can't hear you, which is perfectly okay, you know. But he's the only one who can't hear me. The rest of the people can hear me just fine. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shepard. I'm Sarah Salim, sitting and just introducing you. So that is an amazing story of your success and an amazing example of a woman leader who has gone through all the struggles, hurdles, and now as sitting as a very successful scientist here. And your last slide is amazing, giving all the lessons we should be giving to all the women leaders. I'm not against men, but since this conference is for the women scientists, so I'm addressing those. And of course, men are always had always been part of Dr. Shepard's team. So this is amazing, and I think public health is not, I'm a public health person, so public health is not complete without basic sciences. And you have taken science from bench to the public health. That is so important. And exactly bench to public health, that is great. And of course, your DNA story from basic to diagnostic to surveillance is amazing. And I think I'm a applied researcher and mostly of the phase 3. So basically I'm looking for from the different aspects. And as a public health, I heavily rely on the basic sciences and all the things coming in between. So I think we should thank you for your hard work. You are an amazing leader. And I think there are so many bright-eyed youngsters sitting here who will be definitely following you. Thank you so much. So with that, we'll continue with our oral presentations. And we have Dr. Misha Tanveer, and she's lecturer in Department of Physiology, Dow International Medical College, and a Swiss fellow. She's presenting on air pollution-induced genome-wide DNA methylation changes and respiratory health in Karachi, a very important topic. Ms. Misha is a healthcare and research professional with an MBBS from DUHS and an MPhil in physiology from the University of Karachi. She lectures at Dow International Medical College, where she teaches and coordinates undergraduate medical programs. Her research focuses on the impacts of air quality, climate change, and environmental exposures on maternal and child health in LMICs. Very important topic.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for the introduction. Assalamu alaikum, esteemed guests and Swiss fellows. I'm Dr. Misha Tanveer, lecturer at the Department of Physiology in Dow University of Health Sciences. So today I'll be presenting a topic which is pressing public health concern, and it investigates air pollution-induced genome-wide DNA methylation changes and respiratory health effects on women and children of Karachi. So air pollution is now the second leading risk factor. Pakistan loses 200,000 lives each year. For women in South Asia, where PM 2.5 concentrations are really high, are record-breaking high, every breath shortens life by 7 years. Most evidence comes from high-income countries, and Karachi is highly exposed. Yet we lack data linking air pollution to women's lung function, respiratory symptoms, and epigenome. We selected two contrasting zones, an industrial high-traffic corridor and a semi-rural biomass-reliant settlement. We recruited 115 healthy women from each zone, applied a validated respiratory health questionnaire, and performed pulmonary function testing and blood tests, and linked those to air quality. In phase 2, we associate genome-wide DNA methylation with predisposition to diseases, respiratory health, and air quality exposure of the study population. We also investigate DNA methylation inheritance patterns of 20 mother-child pairs. The exposure assessment was done by IQ air monitors, which were each installed in the communities to record hourly PM10, PM2.5, PM1, and AQI. Women were recruited within a 5-kilometer radius, so exposure and health data reflect the same airspace. The socio-demographic profile showed that both sides were low income, but the semi-rural area were poorer, less educated, and with more unemployed women. In the semi-rural zone, about 40% lack natural gas that can be utilized for cooking, and cooking is done mainly by burning wood, often in smoky kitchens with children present. So women bear a double burden of ambient as well as household air pollution. The semi-rural zone air quality actually is worse than the industrial site. We found that it had higher mean AQI, PM2.5, PM10, and PM1 with highly significant differences. We found chronic cough in about 16% of semi-rural women versus 3% in the industrial zone. Upper respiratory tract symptoms such as runny nose, nasal congestion, and sneezing were far more common in the semi-rural area. And more women in the industrial zone showed exertional breathlessness. Pulmonary function testing showed mean FEV1 and FVC around 70 to 75% of predicted in both zones. FEV1 and FVC ratios were preserved, but small airway obstruction, which was shown by FEF 25, 50, and 75, were markedly reduced, especially in the industrial area, which shows that it is an early signal of pulmonary lung function decline in our healthy cohort. We paired PFTs and symptoms with biomarkers. Interleukin-6 is a key inflammatory biomarker, which was significantly higher in the industrial area. CBC differentials showed higher neutrophils and lymphocytes in the industrial zone, consistent with the raised interleukin-6. So we suggest that in the semi-rural zone, energy poverty, wood use, stubble burning, and dusty, unpaved roads create high indoor and ambient particulate matter, manifesting as chronic irritant rhinitis and chronic cough. In the industrial corridor, particulate matter as well as gases such as nitrogen oxides, sulfur dioxides, diesel exhaust particles from industrial stacks, port dust, and traffic reach the distal bronchioles, penetrating the bloodstream. They trigger immune activation and airway modeling, presenting as acute phlegm episodes as well as exertional breathlessness due to small airway inflammation. Although the coastal sea breeze of the industrial zone proved to be beneficial by dispersing the particulate matter. We have extracted DNA from 20 mother-child pairs for whole genome bisulfite sequencing, and analysis is underway to see how exposure and respiratory health and epigenetic marks intersect. So my conclusion to this preliminary analysis is that microgeography matters. Distinct exposures lead to distinct pathways which require distinct fixes. Women's traditional gender roles mean that they are at the center of both ambient and household air pollution. So provision of clean fuels, efficient cook stoves in the semi-rural zones stricter control of industrial and traffic emissions, as well as awareness campaigns and routine respiratory health screening is the way to go. I would like to thank my mentor, Dr. Ambreen Fatima, the Swiss program for giving me the opportunity, as well as my team of LHVs, the community midwives, as well as all of the women and children who willingly participated so that I could do this beneficial study. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Misha, for sharing interesting findings. Important thing to understand is how social determinants of health impacts the overall health outcomes, and especially not just the phenotype, but also how it impacts at the genetic level. So thank you so much. So with this, we have our next presenter, but before announcing for the next presenter, it is requested to the presenters to stick with the time. The time for presenting is 5 minutes. So the next presenter is Varda Salman. Varda is an associate professor of economics at NUST, specializing in development economics and human well-being. A 2024 Women in Science Fellow, her recent work explores the intersections of undernutrition, climate change, and health with a strong focus on air pollution and respiratory outcomes. She leads policy-focused research linking environmental exposures with public health challenges in Pakistan. And she will be presenting on impact of household and ambient air pollution on adult respiratory health.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'm Varda Salman, and today I'll be talking about impact of household and ambient air pollution on respiratory health. So we all know that air pollution is a major global threat, causing millions of premature deaths and costing nearly 6.1% of global GDP. South Asia, especially India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, host 29 of the world's 30 most polluted cities. We know that Lahore, Pakistan's second largest city, is consistently ranked among the top 5 most polluted cities in the world. The city's expansion, industrial boom have severely degraded the air quality, which has definitely impacted the respiratory health of its residents, which led us to this research objectives. We have a twofold research objective here. First, we are going to conducting, in fact, a systematic review of the association between air pollution and respiratory health in South Asia. And moving forward, the second research objective is to assess the impact of ambient as well as household air pollution on adult respiratory health in Lahore, Pakistan, via spirometric testing. So in the first part, starting with the systematic review, with nearly 1,387 studies following PRISMA guidelines, we ended up at 21 studies, which, according to the NOS criteria, all fall into the moderate to good scores categories. Out of these 21 studies, 14 are from India, 8 from Pakistan, 2 from Nepal, and 1 each from Bangladesh and Afghanistan. So this is the forest plot of the random effect model with inverse variance method. We can see that the hazard rate is 1.34. Meaning that 34%, there is a 34% higher risk associated with the masses living in South Asian countries when exposed to higher levels of pollution. So the I-square value is quite high, which is nearly 93%, indicating the significant heterogeneity among our studies, which would definitely lead us to the next part, which is yet to be done on the subgroup analysis, because the heterogeneity might be because of the differences in regional characteristics, depending on the type of measurement of household or ambient air pollution used, the outcome variables, the age cohorts, and many more. So we also conducted Egger's regression test, and the funnel plot is clearly depicting asymmetry. There is a rightward bias in the studies, indicating a kind of publication bias, because it's quite plausible that in the context of South Asia, since the air pollution levels are really high, so the studies normally published have very higher magnitudes of higher side effects. And the studies that show insignificant or negative impacts are very less likely to be published. So the key findings are the key pollutants are 2.5, PM 2.5, PM10 biomass intake. Health impacts are severe. There are higher odds of COPD from household air pollution and 1.7% rise in hospitalizations with increase in PM 2.5. Women and the rural communities relying on solid fuels are among the most vulnerable groups. And there's an urgent need for targeted interventions, stricter regulations, and more longitudinal research, which led us to our second part, which is the impact of smog on respiratory health in Lahore. So we are conducting it in 2 phases. First is the peak smog season, which is normally from November to January. Second is the off-peak season, which from the data, historical 5-year data, it can be either month of April or July or August. We are restricting ourselves to adults aged 18 to 65 years, must be residents of Lahore from last 5 years. Initial health screening would be done. Since it's conducting in 2 phases longitudinal studies, it would be a fixed panel sampling with no replacement, and attrition will be considered. So the sampling would be stratified sample sampling based on Lahore's administrative units, where the sample drawn would be proportional to the population in each of these district tehsils of Lahore. For ambient air pollution, I'm going to consider 3 kinds of data sets versus the NASA Jawani data. We have Punjab Air Quality Index, which is the real-time monitoring of data in 9 different locations of Lahore. And then we have Environmental Protection and Climate Change Department, Government of Punjab data sets, which also provides regular daily reports of the data in different locations of Lahore. For household air pollution, we are constructing a questionnaire which would cover the respiratory health effects, and there are some of the questions which are just given here for reference. We would be asking on the domestic fuel type, the household material, the use of tobacco, pest controls, the location of the kitchen and household, whether it has an exhaust fan or not, and several other measures like that. For spirometry measures, we will be collecting FEV1, FVC, the ratio, peak expiratory flow, and forced expiratory flows. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Verda, for actually keeping up with the time and presenting a very interesting and very important topic. What I'm wondering is that how household air pollution, are there any differences between the type of pollution we have all over, and especially the smog in Lahore and Punjab? So pollution level, is it different within the households or in the environment as well, considering the impact households, especially in the low resource areas and all those things? So that's very important, very, very important topic. And I think this will add to our knowledge, whatever we have currently, and hope so. And with this, we'll start with the next presenter, and please keep with the timings. And Khala Noreen, and she is assistant professor in community medicine and public health, Rawalpindi Medical University. Thank you for coming to Karachi, Khala. And she is going to present on HP vaccination in Pakistan, community perceptions and health system preparedness. Very important topic currently, considering the rate of cervical cancer rising and all the, what we can say, perceptions, good or bad, related to the vaccine. So Khala is an associate professor in the community medicine and public health department at Rawalpindi University. She also serves as additional director in the Department of Medical Education. Her work focuses on public health systems, immunization uptake, and community-based health research, with a special interest in cervical cancer prevention and health system readiness. Go on.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for I'm really humbled by such an introduction, and it's heartening that we belong from the same field. So thank you very much. I'm Dr. Khala. Assalamu alaikum, and very good evening, good afternoon rather. So I am going to present today the public health implication of introducing human papilloma virus vaccination, which is being recently launched in Pakistan. It's a mixed method study to explore study perceptions community perceptions in the health system preparedness. I am doing this project under the supervision of Dr. Zaid Mehman. He is basically from the Community Health Sciences Department of Aga Khan University, and I am really thankful for his support throughout. So regarding cervical cancer, so before having these stats, I would, give you a brief background of the launch of this vaccination, as Madam has just enlightened us. Basically, the vaccine has been recently launched. It as actually Pakistan has achieved a major public health impact by the launch of the HPV vaccination, which was started in 15 September and span across the 15 to 27 September. The campaign duration was from 15 to 27th of September. So the vaccine is being planned to launch in the phasic manner. So first phase target ICT, Punjab, Sindh, AJK, and yes, these areas. And in the second phase, which will start in 2026, will cover the area of Balochistan and KPK province. And in next year, it's actually a 3-year launch out. And in the third year, it will be the part of a routine immunization schedule of the Pakistan. So the first phase has been already launched. I'm lucky enough to, I collect some of the data before the launch and some during that campaign, because my supervisor, this is also connected to my doctoral thesis, and I'm doing the part of that also. So I has been actively involved as a part of, my faculty of a community health sciences from my university, and I'm the part of the campaign also. So I have a deep insights about the community perception, which were actually, the lived experiences of the parents and the potential stakeholders during that, when this campaign was going on. So regarding statistics, globally, it's a 4 more common cancer. In Southeast Asian region, our region, it's 6 most prevalent cancer, but unfortunately, in our part of world, in our country, it's a 3rd most prevalent cancer. And the recent evidence, which is from the systematic review and the meta-analysis, and it's a local-based study from the Karachi. Unfortunately, we have scarcity of the data. There's an underreporting because we don't have a national cancer-based registry. So it was, a localized Karachi-based registry data that report the incidence of 7.6 per 100,000 with 6,166 new cases. And this is the annual estimate. So these are the grave picture, despite of having underreporting of data in our part of world. So that, stress the importance of this vaccination for our girls. So the objective of my project was to assess the current level of knowledge, belief, HPV vaccine hesitancy, and the factor associated with its uptake, to explore the stakeholder perspective for the launch of HPV vaccine according to the dynamics of a local population of a resource-constrained setting, to analyze community perceptions and beliefs regarding vaccination, social behavior change communication framework for tailored education strategies, and to assess the capacity of healthcare infrastructure and the readiness of health system to deliver the HPV vaccination in Pakistan. So basically, it was a convergent, parallel, mixed method study design. This means that it includes both strands, quantitative strand and the qualitative strand. So quantitative data was basically collected from the parents and the caregivers of women of 9 to 16 years of age. And the qualitative strand, the qualitative data was basically collected. We did 45 in-depth interviews, key informant interviews, and 5 focus group discussions from the public health officials, from the representative of country offices of UNICEF, WHO, JPIGO, donors, and different partners who were actively involved in the launch of this vaccination. And apart from this, yes, we have FTI, Federal Directorate of Immunization stakeholders. We have Gavi stakeholders with us, and we have LHVs and LHWs as a community representative as a part of our data collector for a qualitative strand also. So quantitative strand, we collected sample size was calculated on the base of WHO sample size calculator and turned out to be around 384, but it was inflated to cater for the maximum representation, and the data was collected from the northern Punjab, from Rawalpindi and ICT, and from southern Punjab, from the Bahawalpur district, covering the southern Punjab. So data analysis plan covered the quantitative strand, include the bivariate regression analysis and the multivariate regression analysis, and the qualitative analysis is planned to be conducted according to the Braun and the Clark steps of analysis. So let me tell you that since I am from the cohort 2, I am still in the process of a data analysis, and the reports are yet to be, these are just a preliminary findings. So I took my data using WHO behavior social driver of vaccination framework. According to this framework, basically this color coding is also aligned with the framework. This is for motivation, thinking in, it has 4 domains, which include motivation, thinking and feeling, social pressure, and practical issues. So I collected the data using that BEST tool. And you know, the striking feature that come up with the quantitative data was that Pakistan, most of the parents, around 86% parents know that Pakistan is going to launch, since the data was collected before the launch, they know that the Pakistan is going to launch the vaccine for girl aged 9 to 16 years. And they're also willing to vaccinate their daughters against this new vaccine. They think that the vaccine is safe for them and it's good for them, and they actually want to get their daughter vaccinated. However, when we go into the in-depth analysis, during the qualitative data collection, there was a lot of fear, and there is a lot of, you know, misinformation, skepticism regarding vaccine. And this was the time when I was actually the part of a campaign. On the 5th day, there was a significant drop in the vaccine uptake. Reason being, our social media was completely flooded with a lot of misinformation and myths. And these, unfortunately, these myths and misinformation are not from the common people, they are from the educated people and even the doctors. So, you know, the vaccination rate significantly dropped at the 5th day, and at 5th day, all the stakeholders and the country offices and the donor and the partners, they sit together, they have a meeting, and they decided to, you know, to give a community different role models. And at that time, the federal minister get her daughter vaccinated in front of media to have, you know, community support for the vaccination, and then the things will get, then things improve, but not to that extent. So social processes include the problem with the message framing, in which since it's related to the sexual mode of transmission, so there was a lot of, you know, patriarchal influence, and the father was saying that this vaccine is not meant for their daughter, belong to the Muslim world, and this is for the Western girls, and you know, our society norms are different from them. So the need of the male engagement is very much evident during the campaign, that we should include it as a part of social behavior change communication strategies for the coming up next year launch. So practical issues include
excuse me,
difficulty
Dr. Khola,
in
we are running out of time.
difficulty in access to the vaccine, and the need of the female staff for the vaccination, because the parents were highly reluctant to get their daughter vaccinated from the male vaccinator. So I will not go into the detail. I will just give a wrap-up message since my time is over. Mainly the finding represent that despite of the low awareness, acceptance is potentially high among the parents and the caregiver. So need is to develop a culturally sensitive message endorsed by the religious and the community leaders, especially LHVs and the LHWs has a very good role, and the community, you know, sensitization and the community engagement was high, and the uptake of the vaccine was high in the areas where LHVs and LHWs were involved. And definitely with the support of intra-sectoral coordination, which include the educational sector, which include the vaccination sector, which include the religious affair and the health departments. So next plan is to propose the SBC framework for the targeted interventional strategies for education to address this vaccine hesitancy. Thank you very much. And in the end, I would like to thank the whole team of IGHT and supporting women in science for providing me with an opportunity, because this is not only the one project. I have already published meta-analysis and systematic review in Frontiers Public Health regarding the determinants of uptake of HPV vaccine, and the protocol of this is also published in PLOS One. And the series of publications are on the way. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Khala, for a very interesting study that you have done, and we see huge implications in a country where there are huge misperceptions related to the HPV vaccine. So with this, we move to the last presenter of today, Saima Ahmed Khan. Saima is the Deputy Director, Directorate of Complaints, Sindh Healthcare Commission. She will be presenting on Quality of Care Quest, Analysis of Healthcare Complaints to Identify System Blind Spots. Saima is a public health professional, and she works on the health governance and policy design. Her research interests include MNCH, health data sciences, NCDs, and maternal psychology. She is committed to strengthening public health systems through data-driven strategies and evidence-based policy development. Over to you.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. This is Samia Khan, not Saima Khan, and I am currently working as a Deputy Director at Sindh Healthcare Commission, and I want to analyze the data under this IGHT opportunity, and in which I'm analyzing the whole directorate data of complaints, which is almost 1,200 complaints yet from the 2018 to 2025 December. So what I am analyzing is I want to find a hotspot in quality of care and a blind spot in service delivery or service provision at Sindh Healthcare Commission. So you know that in a high-income countries, you find out that different kind of agencies like NHS in UK or Agency of Healthcare Research and Quality in US, analyzing such kind of complaints received at their own setups. But in Sindh Healthcare Commission or Punjab or anywhere in the Pakistan, there is no significant body who analyzing such complaints, or the lack of reliable analysis tools which may hinder this kind of data. My research objectives is I want to identify the hotspot and blind spot in the healthcare system by conducting a systematic analysis of healthcare complaints received at Sindh Healthcare Commission from January 2018 till December 2025. So my study design is mixed method. It's a retrospective record review of databases of Sindh Healthcare Commission, and I am excluding the complaints just because they are not related to the health setups. They are duplicate if they are incomplete or not belongs to the jurisdiction of the Sindh. So I'm excluding those complaints. So what are the hotspot and blind spots? Hotspots are majority something related with the maternal and neonatal care, their wards, labor room, operation theaters. Primary care facilities are the major hotspot in our system, like infection control, medication error in the ward, medication error in the OPD, diagnostic and radiological errors, overcrowded OPDs, and ER is the main opportunities where mishandling of the cases actually presents. And what are the blind spots? Blind spots are those areas where disrespectful behaviors, disrespectful maternity care, lack of information sharing between the patient and the care provider. So many times you have noticed that there is no consent policies in the hospitals. So these are the blind spots I have identified, including a cultural barriers or dismissal of patient voices. So my plan is to root cause analysis of every complaint, then a descriptive, bivariate, and multivariate analysis. And I want to present my, because this is a cohort 2, I am a cohort 2 fellow, so I will be present the frequencies, percentages, the timelines of when the complaint has arrived at SSCC and when the disposal is completed. So the resolution time across different kind of healthcare establishment, resolution time of complaint severity, whether it's major harm or a catastrophic harm. So logistic regression will be applied for resolution time, because in my data set, there are so many complaints who received at Sindh Healthcare Commission in, let's suppose, 2021, but still, till the 2025, there is no resolution or no disposal of a complaint has been yet followed. So the preliminary findings is that what my graph represents here is the only 139 complaints, and I have identified 107 distinct issues across the 139 complaints, resulting in the formulation of 3 main domains, including clinical, management, and relationships. And in a clinical, you have found out that 63% of the complaints are something related with the safety. If you want to go to the clinic and you have a right side of the abdominal pain, something related with the appendix, but unfortunately or fortunately, doctor has opened the left side of your so these are the so common issues. A patient come up with the hernia and end up with the knee surgery. So these are the complaints. So if you are subcategorize the domain of management, it's something related with the environmental and institutional processes. And subcategories of a domain of relationship includes the listening, the behavior of the healthcare provider, the communication between the healthcare provider and the patient. So if you are talking about the stages of care where the most of the complaints, where the most of the complaint has arisen is the examination and diagnosis. There is a very poor examination findings available in the files. Nobody is providing the accurate information at the time of complaints even. And the harm level, most of the complaint arises at the Sindh Healthcare Commission when the person is died or have a permanent disability, which accounts for 44% of catastrophic harm, whether belongs to the patient or anybody with the minor harm, with the moderate harm, or the major harm, or the sum of less kind of percentages. So currently, there is no taxonomy in Pakistan. There is no established framework for Pakistan in healthcare complaint analysis. So this research will ultimately identify hotspots and the blind spots in service delivery of the SEN. These are my mentors, and thank you so much. IGHD team, the acknowledgement goes to the CEO Healthcare Commission and the Director Complaints, Dr. Faiza. These are the references. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Samia, for sharing your very interesting findings. So with this, we conclude this session on health systems. We had a keynote speaker, and we had 4 presenters from the Women in Science Health. And I think the beauty is that all the 4 participants or the presenters, they were diverse in terms of their geography, institutions, and also the topics. And when we say, at times we use the terminology peer-to-peer, and now I see women to women. So a lot of the topics that these participants selected and conducted their studies on were very much relevant to women issues. So for instance, from cellular level DNA to the population health, and especially the 2 talks were on how air pollution especially impacts the women who are working in the kitchen and the household tasks that they are doing. So these are the topics that have huge implications. And also the HPV vaccine study. There's a lot of misperception, so we certainly see the implications of these studies. So with this, I would like to invite all the 4 presenters on the stage. And in the interest of time, as I have been advised, that we can take only 2 questions from the audience. Yes, Dr. Putta. Yeah,
all the way
please.
from Lahore. And so Shaper, amazing presentation on your journey. But can you say now that you are at this apex institution in Punjab at LUMS, are there still barriers that you encounter in terms of advancing female faculty members and staff? Sorry if it's a loaded question, but I have to ask you this.
Can you all hear me? Okay. So I think there are a lot of visible and invisible barriers, and I think women has to struggle through those barriers every day. One of the barriers is, the most important barrier is that even though men and women both think alike, but the thought process of men reaches leadership faster than women. Then shadow. like women somehow are under the shadow of male co-workers. And even if you don't think of those male co-workers as male co-workers, they are still perceived as male co-workers, and they try to they're in your face. They're not going anywhere. But I think that the best thing is that you have to take it all positively and keep pushing. And if you push harder, you will get through it.
Thank you so much. My question is from Dr. Samia. It was wonderful presentation. I just wanted to ask that you have mentioned that the duration of the complaint is from 2018 to 2025. It's a 7 long year, but your complaints are only 103. Am I correct?
No. I am talking to you that I am analyzing the data between 2018 to 2025.
Yeah.
And during this period, only almost 1,200 complaints SHCC has received yet. I know there are so many complaints across the province, but what the major chunk of 1,200 complaints is still with the Healthcare Commission pool. So I am analyzing only those complaints who are received between the 2018 and 2025, and unfortunately there are only 1,200. So the reason is that nobody knows how to approach to the Healthcare Commission. Most of the time, people has a fear whether we receive a justice, or whether the medical negligence, maladministration, or malpractice would have been proved or not. So there are so many things. But unfortunately, people are not availing the forum of a Healthcare Commission well, if there is a forum available in all across the Pakistan, like Punjab, KPK, Balochistan, Sindh, even Islamabad has a forum to address such kind of complaints, but nobody. And I'm telling you one important thing. Out of the 1,200, most of the complaints are those who directed by the ombudsman, who directed us by the FIR, who directed by the court, or who are somehow sub judice into the court, in another court. So out of 1,200, if we further analyze, there are so many complaints related to the salaries. Like in an institution, I don't receive my salary, so they go to the healthcare complaint. So there are so many hinges or lacking or lacunae in the data as well of the Sindh Healthcare Commission.
Thank you so much to the presenters and to the audience. So we'll conclude the session here, and I would just like to reiterate some of the lessons which the keynote speaker, Dr. Mirza, you highlighted. Perseverance is the key to success in research. Negative results are equally important. And then flexibility is very important and the key in research. So I think we have a lot of young researchers who are future leaders. So these are the key messages or the take-home messages from today's session. So thank you so much.
Don't go too far. Thank you.
Dear chairs, I would like to request you to please present mementos to our fellows. I would like to invite Dr. Shaper to the stage. Mr. Tanveer. Dr. Verda Salman, please come on the stage. Dr. Khola Noreen. Dr. Samia Khan. I would request Dr. Shaper to give the mementos to our chairs. Thank you so much, Dr. Shaper, Dr. Leila, and Dr. Sara. Ladies and gentlemen, we now begin the closing session of the Supporting Women in Science Conference. We are honored to welcome our chief guest, Ms. Shahnawaz Wazir, President, SWS University, Karachi. To open our closing proceedings, I would like to invite Dr. Zulfikar Bhutta, Founding Director, IGHT, AKU Karachi. Dr. Bhutta is a distinguished academic and renowned global health expert. He serves as Distinguished University Professor and Founding Director. Okay.
Thank you, Gamza. Thank you. Yesterday, my better half was telling me, "Logon ke itne lambe introduction ho rahe hain. They only said 2 sentences about you." And I told her, "Look, the standing rule in my department, in the institute, is you're not going to do a long introduction for me." So as host, absolutely not. Look, it's fantastic to see all of you here at the end of this 1.5-day conference. And I wanted to personally introduce our chief guest today, who I know personally and admire for her contributions to public health, to education, to a variety of sectors in Pakistan, a true daughter of Pakistan. So Ms. Shahnawaz Wazir Ali is a polymath in the widest description. Now, what does the polymath mean? That she has done so much in education, in public policy, in social development, and advocacy for women's rights, and not just recently, decades, over decades. So she, over the last 5 decades of national service, she has served as a 2-time member of the National Assembly of Pakistan, a special assistant to the Prime Minister of Pakistan, a minister responsible for social sectors, and she has championed reforms in education, health, and community empowerment. I personally have had the great pleasure of working with her when she was leading the Pakistan polio eradication program, and I saw firsthand as to how dedicated and evidence-informed she was, along with Dr. Azra Pachio. And she actually implemented the program that my institute and the Center for Excellence for Women and Childhood works with so closely, the Pakistan Lady Health Workers Program, which is actually the backbone of our primary program, primary health care, after decades of implementation. She's been recognized nationally, the Sitara Imtiaz holder, and has been in Forbes 50 and over global list. And she served in leadership roles across a range of agencies, UNESCO, World Bank, IBA, BISP, SPDC, but she's currently the president of the Zabist University. And that in itself is a remarkable achievement, as you will see in a minute. And we are very grateful, Ms. Wazir Ali, that you are here, not only in your capacity as an academic par excellence, but also as a founding member, I would say, of the Women's Action Forum, and a long-term trustee of what I've just discovered today, an education trust, Nasra's School of Trust. So thank you very much for being here. What I will do over the next 15 minutes or so, if we can get technology to work, is to tell you a little bit about what we initiated here. So this program, which we believe has been unique, at least in trying to promote science support for early career women researchers, was based on several things that we knew from the global literature. One of those is the gender gap that we have on science. Now, the analogy for this, going back to a UNESCO report of over a decade ago, was the leaky pipes that we have for female academics. Even though women start off with relatively higher proportions in science education, particularly around pre-medical and biology, the drop-off rates between basic education, that first degree, bachelor's, then to master's, conversion to PhDs, and then importantly, to an early career in an academic institution is massive. And these global figures here, which are again from a decade ago, underscore that problem. This gender gap has been recognized for South Asia in particular, that particularly in highly cited researchers, only about 10% of women, and it's the region, our region, is the region with the smallest proportion of women researchers. Some 12 years ago, these were the data published at that time from UNESCO as to what was the proportion of women in various disciplines. And we couldn't really get, because the data was not very clear to us as to whether these were institutes of higher learning or academia or what, but these were the figures published. So we updated those. So here are a few numbers, which I know that our chief guest will probably update to a better level, but we put these together. So at least 50% of students in undergraduate programs are girls in Pakistan, and in some disciplines like biology and medicine, it's around 70 to 80%. Yet, they fall off a cliff. So it's called the postgraduate cliff. The moment they graduate from the program, beyond that, the inclusion of women in our higher training programs is much less. And it is not just related to systemic structural barriers in terms of jobs, positions, etc. It's related to our social, cultural milieu also. Women are supposed to raise their families, get married, and then our system does not quite support flexible systems, particularly for early career researchers. And so when you come to early career researchers, in many STEM disciplines in public sector universities in Pakistan, women are only about 25 to 30% of full-time faculty. In elite research organizations, I will not name them or shame them at this point in Pakistan, these are several. If you look at women who are in the senior staff, less than 15% of them are senior staff in our elite organizations in Pakistan. And Madam Wazir Ali, you will note that of the 108 vice chancellors of universities in Pakistan, only 14% are women. And we also looked at, Bhavita looked at the data on Tamgha-e-Imtiyaz recipients in STEM fields over the last, let's say, 15 years. And if you look at this, only 16% of them, 15% were women. So this really is a massive issue in our own milieu. So to do that, we created a program which was principally conceived as an effort to support early career researchers, those who are on a career pathway, but are facing perhaps systemic barriers, conscious or unconscious, in their organizations. And we wanted to do this through a mentorship program, to select them on merit, bring them in, provide them support, and to also enhance capacities. And at the end of this project, they would have something to show it for. Publications, research credentials, and that would help them in their career. We were guided in this program, even though it may have been started by men, by a completely female-led steering committee. And we are so grateful for many of them who are in the audience here. And because this program covered both East Africa and South Asia, you will see many leaders from East Africa in this steering committee, which was established to provide oversight, guidance, strategic direction. And this 12-member committee was significant in identifying also the challenges and capacity gaps. And they helped us in envisioning how this program should evolve. So how does this program work? So this, in a nutshell, is the way we thought this would work. An initial process of a completely meritorious, open call for applications. Anybody who's interested in doing this applied, and we've advertised this through the usual sectors. And we screened them using the eligibility criteria, and two basic criteria were that should have been early career female researchers. They should have been on a pathway in an institution, so anybody individual, etc., was not eligible. And that, of course, that they needed to have the wherewithal in terms of applying to join this program. We always felt that as a cost-effective measure, the initial part of this training program should be a period of self-learning using materials that we would make available online. And this would give all of these early career female researchers an opportunity to enhance their learning existing and also new topics that they would bring in. And then we would evaluate who was really suitable, fit, and on merit could go through that pyramid and to the second phase. And the third phase was where there would be hand-holding. So we then had a process of mentorship, and we recognized that women would not leave their jobs, so we did not want them to leave their institution, but also have the ability to work with mentors and a reasonable amount of funding to initiate their projects. And you've seen some of those projects over the last day and a half. So the first phase had some virtual learning core curriculum courses. These are compulsory. And there are 5 elective domains, and they would select one course from any 3 domains of interest. So altogether, they're expected to finish 10 courses in a period of about 6 months. These courses were standardized, and many of these modules are available, and they cover many of these disciplines and topics. And the important thing is, we were able to get all of these free access through Coursera to every participant and through various institutions that are mentioned here. In the elective curriculum, there was a bit more elbow room, and here we offered both in the usual priority areas of maternal newborn child health, research methodology, global public health, environment, health, climate, and development, and health in crisis settings. So these are a range of topics, and as I've mentioned, they could select any 3. And as we expand this and as we grow this, we'll probably have a little bit more on leadership training. So the tools of learning are here, as I said, standardized platform, and luckily, fortunately, and also through the hard work of program directors. Bhavita Kumari is here, Jay Das is here, who's been coordinating a lot of this, and a number of other people. We have not had any glitches in terms of access. In fact, if anything, we've had a lot of support from Coursera as to how these courses can be made available. Now, how do we make sure that people actually do this? They're supposed to maintain their own individual records and also provide monthly progress reports. And irrespective of whether they want to go to the next phase or not, everybody is given a course completion certificate. So they get something out of it, even if they don't progress to the next phase. But we hope that they will progress to the next phase, so there is an evaluation. And the evaluation is pretty standardized, pretty much observed. So, and although it's online, there is a restricted time, and they're observed just like you would do for IELTS or TOEFLs or any of the other online evaluations. We also check English language proficiency. I'm very grateful to our university for making those modules available. And we select on an average from every cohort based on the resources that we have, about 20 to 25 candidates who then graduate. The phase 3 is a distant mentored fellowship program where we link them with mentors, and we also provide them around 6 months for research protocol development, 12 months for implementation, and somebody who can help them undertake the kind of research that you've seen over the last year and a half. And I can guarantee you, since I chair the Health Sciences and Allied Committee of our Higher Education Commission, and I've chaired it for a long time, that many of these topics would not get funded from our usual sources, either that or through our National Institutes of Health. So one advantage here is that they are assured that if they develop an evidence-based project, they will get funding. So we are very grateful to the mentors, some of whom we will recognize today, who have helped us. We have 65 mentors who have helped us in the last 2.5 years. Of them, nearly half are from Pakistan, a little more than half, 13 from East Africa, and 5 from the University of Oxford, who have also provided support to this. So altogether, this fellowship process, ladies and gentlemen, involves a period of time which is structured with protocol development, peer review, ethics submission, budget approvals, fellowship contracts, and funds distribution. Now, we had miscalculated this. When we developed this program, we had no idea as to how difficult, challenging, and time-consuming this would be. And although this is our own university's program, this has taken far longer than we envisaged, but it's been very good. Why? Because all the recipient institutions, so we don't give money to individuals. Nobody gets money in their private bank account. This is only given to institutions. So institutions have to develop also the financial oversight mechanisms to handle grants, and many of these institutions have not had grants before. Then they need to complete audit trails and records for all of this, and this takes time. So over time, this will also improve management capacity for research. So how have we done? So altogether, close to around 1,329 applicants, candidates applied, women applied for this mentorship program, of whom 677 undertook phase 1, and 286 qualified in phase 2, from whom the ones who were offered, selected, and completed, or are completing this entire program, we have 84 scholars over the last 2.5 years who have gone through this mentor program. It's far higher than what I had envisioned when we were developing this. We were only supposed to have 3 rounds. We only had money enough for 3 rounds. And we squeezed and said we'll do 4 rounds because we could make do with lesser resources as long as we had interested candidates. So the application cycles from beginning to end have gone, as you can see, from October 21, right after COVID, as COVID was coming down, to the current time that we have, which is the sunset period, and next year will be, at least for this particular phase, the last year of this project. Where did these candidates come from? They came from all over the place. In our very first call, we had candidates from the United States, Canada, Europe, because there were many national expatriates who were there who applied. And currently, of the 4 cohorts, we have 17 countries represented here, largely from Southeast Asia and East Africa. If you look at their geographic location, these 84 trainees are predominantly from Pakistan. There's one from Bangladesh, who I just met a week ago in Dhaka, and several from Africa, East Africa, and also including some other parts of sub-Saharan Africa. These are the various cohorts. As you see, cohort 1, fantastic if some of you are in the audience. And these were the projects that disciplines that they developed. And we do not tell them what to do. They have to come up with ideas themselves, and then we link them with a mentor. So this, to a certain extent, is also a reflection of how the program has grown. In our first cohort, you could see traditional things here: infectious disease, health systems, cancer, a little bit of climate change and health. Second cohort, which had some very strong people, you see an expansion of this to also things like NCDs, geriatrics, genetic disorders, medical education, health systems. Further expansion in our third cohort to other topics that include also basic medical sciences, adolescent health, even things like domestic violence, areas that other people in East Africa have gone into. But climate change and health remains an important centerpiece. So altogether, if you take the 4 cohorts that we have a very interesting wide range of topics that our female scholars, women scholars have focused on. And that also tells you that in many of these disciplines, these people will be, inshallah, future leaders in many of these areas. We used to lament, Zainab is here, as to how little work is happening in non-communicable diseases. We have 5 abstracts in this conference on NCDs. So really speaking, I think this area will flourish. So what has happened to them since the fellowship? We are beginning now to analyze more objectively what is happening to this cohort, and are they better than other counterparts? And it's not an easy exercise because we have to create an artificial cohort and have to do this objectively, comparing publications, career progress. But just to give you a snapshot, of the trainees that we have had, there are many who have written grants themselves outside of Swiss, many who have been promoted up the ladder, and many who have been invited to collaborate on grants per se. So measures in terms of success of a program does not necessarily come very quickly. And some of this will be tracked over time as this program matures and develops. So I wanted to give you a snapshot as to where we are. I mean, the success of this program is very much on the basis of the people who have supported it, the excellent candidates that we have had, and the many mentors that we have had in this position. So I'm very grateful for your time. I hope that as we expand this and grow this, we will diversify not only the reviewer pool and the mentors pool, but also disciplines. And I'm very keen, having spoken to Michelle Bari from Stanford, who runs the Women Rise program for the Gates Foundation, that we may be able to send some of these women for leadership training. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm going to hand this now back to Jay Das, or our MC. And if you have any thoughts and suggestions, write to us, and we'll be happy to incorporate.
Right. So thank you, Dr. Bhutta, for taking us through this program in summary and showing what the success has been so far. And as Dr. Bhutta rightly mentioned, I think all of the success lies on the shoulders of the great fellows that we have had across these 4 cohorts. So a big round of applause to all the fellows. Now, as we come closer to the end of this 1.5 days conference, and we've been hearing from some keynote speakers yesterday, and today also we heard the fellows themselves over the time. And now I think it is time to sum it up. And I think what's a better way to do it than have a discussion with all the key prominent leaders of science, especially working in Pakistan. So I think we have the privilege of having 4 prominent scholars here. I'd like to invite them one by one. And first I would like to invite Professor Duresamin Akram, a prominent scholar, clinician, researcher, human and workers over the years. And I'm also a student. I was a medical graduate. She was a professor of pediatrics at that time, but a prominent pediatrician, child health advocate, and has been working in this space for a very long time, and tirelessly has been working especially on the topics of nutrition. And currently, she also holds a faculty position at Aachen University and focuses on many areas, including improving the childhood nutrition. So it's my privilege to welcome Professor D.S. Akram to the stage. Our second panelist is, we heard her in the morning, so there was a great keynote presentation which set the scene for today. And again, really glad that you again took out time for this panel discussion. So Dr. Salima Balani, who's the Dean of School of Nursing and Midwifery, and brings extensive global health and policy experience. And we heard in the morning her great journey of how she rose from the ranks and where she has ended up. So thank you again, Dr. Salima, for coming here. Our third panelist is, again, a very prominent woman scholar, Professor Zahra Hassan. We also had the privilege of hearing her as a keynote speaker today. And just to briefly introduce her, she's a professor of the Department of Pathology and Laboratory Medicine at Aachen University, and a molecular pathologist. She also leads the PhD program here, so has been directly associated with higher education, especially focusing on improving the enrollments among women scholars for this PhD program. We had a 4th panelist who was Nazli Faruqi, who is a Vice Chancellor of the Dow University of Health Sciences, but unfortunately, due to her not feeling well, she's not able to join us today. But I guess we were very fortunate enough to see and have with us Professor Aziz Sheikh, who met today, and we're fortunate that he has come all the way from UK and was with us, and we took that liberty an opportunity to invite him for this panel discussion, and also to create a balance in this discussion, because I think men also have an important role in promoting and advocating for women in science. So let's see how it goes. But to give a brief introduction for Professor Aziz Sheikh, he is the professor and head of the Nuffield Primary Healthcare Sciences at the University of Oxford. He's a professional fellow at Harris Manchester College, University of Oxford, an honorary consultant with the UK Health Security Agency. And most importantly, he was knighted for his work in the COVID-19 work. So it's a privilege to have this esteemed panel with us today. And what I'll do is I'll start. Take the mic. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Right. So let's start with Professor Zara, sir. And we have been hearing, Dr. Zara, yeah, bad job. Okay, all right. Right, okay. So Professor Zara, this program that we have been talking about has been working on early career women scientists who have already achieved something, have gained educations, done their post-graduations. And what I would like to know, and what have been discussed over these 2 days, is also the leaky pipeline. And what you see, the major proportion of the fallout here is women or girls who do not even enroll at school or fall at the primary, secondary, and the higher level of education. So what do you think are the reasons behind those? Of course, we are cognizant of some of those reasons. But more importantly, what could be done to ensure that these girls at least have the basic level of educations and have a chance to get into a higher education?
Thank you for asking. With regard to primary education, I think other people probably have better information and data than me, but I'd like to talk about higher education, postgraduate education, because we know that at university, and the numbers were shown by Dr. Anjum yesterday, more than 50% of students in biological sciences are women. So they come into the sciences, but then less go into master's programs, and even fewer go into PhD programs. So I think it's the support networks you need, because they're at that stage where they're expected to fulfill so many social demands. They've been through university, and it's time for them to do other things. Their biological clocks are meant to be ticking, and it seems that it's one or the other. So being forced to choose between your career and personal demands is often problematic if you don't have a support structure.
All right. Thank you. So my next question for Professor D.S. Akram. She was a prominent leader, academic leader, working in a public sector university, which still is a rarity, and at that time it was absolutely a rarity. So what do you think, Professor D.S. Akram, in our context, what are the, of course there are multiple factors, but what are the major factors which holds these women from acquiring these leadership positions? And more importantly, what could be done to alleviate those factors?
I think some of the factors Zara has already mentioned. There is basically the family expectations that you have to balance your role as a mother, you have to get married soon, so you have children, and then you have to, do your job, but come home and do the cooking as well. So it is a balancing act for many women, and a lot of them cannot cope with that. The second thing, of course, is the opportunities. In medicine, I think that women have done well because they're needed in Pakistan in medicine. So, but then, even after they become doctors, about 50% of them drop out because of family pressures and also the lack of opportunities as to where to go. When they do get in, then there might be harassment in a lot of cases. Even in medicine, It might be difficult to do night jobs for girls. So all in all, as you go up the ladder, you face more and more difficulties in the form of balancing your career with your home, opportunities, sometimes bullying and harassment, and also whether you can stick it out, as was said by somebody, that although you have difficulties, but if you stick it out, then you do make it. So that strength and energy, very few women have for that.
All right. So just a question in continuation, and I'll continue the same question with Professor Salima also here. What do you think, because we understand women has many other roles and responsibilities, but how do you think have institutions facilitated those and provided those flexible trainings, flexible working hours, or support in terms of childcare facilities at the work institutes? What's your experience that how, especially medical schools, universities, colleges, hospitals, how have they fared in providing that support to women?
So I can speak from my experience because, as you said, I worked in civil hospital, one of the terrors, and the patients that come there are very demanding. And I have had a chance to oversee a lot of females that came into the pediatric ward and who worked in the pediatric ward. And got married and had children and had to do the balancing act. And we tried to be flexible in the sense of giving them duties that did not collide with the challenges they had at home. Sometimes they took longer to finish their fellowships, but that was okay because then they took time off in between and came back. And also, I think that fortunately, the male counterparts who were working with them were very supportive. And you know, if they could not come or they had to take care of the baby or whatever, they took over. So there is camaraderie. I mean, there may be harassment in some areas, but males do give camaraderie as well. So it is positive. Yeah.
Thank you. So carrying this forward, question forward to you, Professor Salima, what's your take on how institutions have supported, especially you are leading a large nursing school here, and what do you think still the deficiencies are, and how can we further support women to advance, not to complete their undergrad, but also go into the master's, PhD, and further educations?
Mm-hmm. So, you know, in addition to everything that my colleagues talked about, here at AKU, there is a lot of discussion now. Our provost is trying to improve our childcare facilities. Those are, you know, extremely important. Space is a challenge, but all of that has to be done if we are to support women in science, women in nursing, women in medicine, and enable them to keep their education and their research and their practice forward. Another aspect is, yes, some men are very supportive in workplaces and some women are too, but I think as women, we have to be more caring towards our peers. Sometimes we are so focused on policies and demands that are on ourselves to produce and lead a program or a project that we become so rigid that sometimes we even become uncaring towards our peers. So as women, we also have to have some empathy with our younger, newer, less able to give lots of hours. You know, understanding is very, very important. Another thought that, you know, maybe later in our conversation I'll also promote is that not all fields that women choose. We talked about women taking pre-medical sciences, then going into medicine or nursing or some other biological fields. In Pakistan right now, not all fields have even PhD programs. Fields like occupation therapy that a lot of women may choose, physiotherapy, are not as developed. Even in nursing, AKU has the first PhD program ever, but There's only one other PhD program in nursing in Pakistan that has produced any PhD prepared nurses. So we don't have a lot of pathways. Sometimes these are structural or policy barriers that we have to overcome as well.
Thank you. Professor Azisha, so first question would be that you've been hearing some information about this SWS program. So what's your take that how these programs can help and how further can they take the careers of these early career women scientists? And one obvious question, of course, would be to you would be how can male counterparts, that Dr. D.S. Akram also suggested, can further support women scientists and make sure that they go up this career trajectory? So your take on these 2 points.
So first of all, thank you for inviting me to be part of this panel. It's a real privilege. No, sorry, I'm just joining sort of the end of what seems to be a fantastic conversation. This looks like a brilliant program, so many congratulations to everybody who's been involved in setting this up and delivering it. From my own experience, I mean, I think these kind of programs can be transformative. So I've been involved in setting up and establishing cohorts in other contexts, both nationally and internationally. And I think, I mean, what this does is it kind of provides a badge. It's a degree of recognition that institutions will sort of appreciate. That's important. Clearly, the mentorship is being provided by sort of outstanding faculty, and that's, I mean, I think transformative. Resources being provided, I mean, that's brilliant to see. But I think what's kind of equally important in all of this is the peer-to-peer learning, because that is, I mean, if we can find ways of actually supporting these cohorts longitudinally through an alum network, I think that can be incredibly powerful, because there are challenges coming up all of the time. In terms of males, I mean, I think really, I mean, of course, we've got an important role to play, because this is part of a much bigger sort of piece around how do we develop inclusive workplaces, inclusive opportunities. So the lens here is on sex and gender, a really important dimension. But if we look at this in the round, I mean, what we're trying to tackle is institutions which have been predicated on the needs of able-bodied males. So there's a lot further to go here for majority population. So in my part of the world, we're also beginning to think about this in terms of ethnicity and race, disability considerations, etc. So I mean, I think the fact that we're beginning to make progress on this front is really welcome. I think it's the start of a journey, because ultimately what we want to do is create environments where people can sort of draw on their talents and use that for the betterment of society. And I think clearly males have got a really important part to play in that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Professor Zara, a question to you is that, of course, apart from, we understand AKU is sort of an exceptional place for Pakistan, in Pakistan, in terms of the working environment, especially for women. And we have heard that from some keynote speakers also. But in general, if you talk about all the other institutes and universities across Pakistan, do you think that women scientists often have to face pressure and to conform to the male-dominated norms, which has to be accepted rather than creating their own norms? So what would you say regarding that?
So we have colleagues here from other universities in Pakistan, and what I have heard is that everyone is increasing the women in higher education. There are more women professors, but their organizations are generally more male-dominated than AKU. That is for sure. So I think Pakistan is certainly moving in that direction. But policy and what we heard yesterday from the president was a very, an effort and an intention to expand female participation. That needs to be done, because you have women who will strive in any environment, and those that will succeed in more male-dominated environments. But to actually get the numbers in, you need to make it easier. Everyone should not have to be 10 times as good as men to make it through the ranks.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Professor Akram, one question is that we understand there are so many actors or stakeholders who are responsible for the state of this current scenarios in terms of women getting educations, building careers, going to the leadership positions. But if you say who holds the maximum responsibility, is it the family, is it the society, are the institutes, is it the government? Who would have the maximum responsibility if you have to turn the tables here? Or who can play a major role here?
It's a really difficult question here because all of them have a role to play. But I would say that the first school is the family. And so I think if we have to change things, we have to raise the awareness of parents as to the role of their female children, and that, you know, they are as creative as their male children, they have as much potential, they can be financially, positive, they can do whatever their boys can do. So this kind of awareness, I think, has to come for the parents. And being a pediatrician, I think pediatricians have a great role to play, because the children come to us, the parents come to us, and we can play a very important role in shaping the parents' perception of what potential the girls can have. So I would say that probably the family would be my first go, but as I said, all other steps are important as well. I mean, you have to have schools where the narrative has to change as to how the roles of girls are defined in schools. In institutions, they have to be given opportunities where they can balance their careers with their families. So each step is important, but I would start with the family, really.
Thank you. Thank you. Professor Lima, one question that I have is that you have been on global boards, advisory committees. So what would you say that this biasness, does it exist at the global level also? When it comes to women representations in these board, award panels, committees, does it exist at that level, or with time, have you seen a change in those norms?
I think because a lot of healthcare workers are women, we do not see on technical advisory boards or program boards or even some review boards, I don't always see a lot of male dominance, but there is definitely work to be done in representation of different women-based professions. So nursing is one of those fields where I'm really concerned about how we often are misunderstood, not included in technical advisory boards, particularly in Pakistan. I'll give you one example. Sindh government recently reached out to AKU to ask them to develop a nursing workforce strategy for Sindh. But who did they reach out at AKU? They did not reach out to me or to the School of Nursing. They reached out to our medical college and asked our medical colleagues to develop the nursing strategy, workforce strategy for Pakistan. I'm fortunate to be working here where my colleagues immediately told the government of Sindh that we are not the people to be developing the nursing workforce strategy. We need to go to the School of Nursing and Midwifery at AKU, and the dean is going to lead this effort. This itself is just an example of how misunderstood our profession is, how it is not seen as a profession capable of even leading its own program and future in this province or in this country. So this is just an example. I'll pass the mic to the next person.
Great. I think we have talked about various stakeholders here. I think one stakeholder, which is in these current times is even more important, is media. So, Professor, what do you think that what role, especially in our context, can media play in reshaping or changing these norms here?
You're speaking in terms of women or nursing and women and all of it?
Anything that you want to answer, yeah.
Okay, so I'll speak particularly about nursing again. Women-dominated profession generally, very strong stereotypes, very little understanding of what is a nurse. In Pakistan right now, to become a nurse, you have to have 4 years of very rigorous education where you enter into the nursing education after intermediate, which is science-based. And after 4 years of education, we have a lab, we have simulation, we have microbiology, we have epidemiology, we do biostats, we do science-based education and practice, followed by 1 year of internship. So 5 years of education is needed in Pakistan right now to become a registered nurse, which is not even the case in the US. Yet people don't understand it. They don't understand that this profession has many educational pathways. There are many ways of becoming a nurse. And media and lay people and also our many colleagues in health policy and in other healthcare professions have done us a huge disservice in how they think about our profession, how they think of this profession as a profession. So I hear a lot, and I'm very sensitive about these things, so I'll just say it. They will say things like, you know, a medical doctor can do nothing about a nurse, without a nurse. Well, you know, you can do your job, even if we weren't there. And we can also do our job of caring for populations and caring for patients in primary healthcare settings and community healthcare settings if you didn't exist. So these are both independent professions. They are autonomous disciplines that work collaboratively. And that's what a nurse is. And that's the kind of narrative we need to promote more. We need to show to the public, the media, our colleagues, that this is a serious profession.
Yeah. Thank you. Professor Aziz, similar question regarding the role of media, and I'm not sure if you're the right person to ask this question, but what's the role of social media? Because it's so relevant, even if you like it, if you don't like it, we are living in an era that everybody goes through it. So do you think social media currently is playing a negative role when it comes to this woman role in science and careers? And how can this be used in using or taking this positively?
Well, I came off social media recently, so I'm not really in a position to answer, and I just found it too kind of difficult to media to deal with. But maybe, can I just make a different point, if that's all right?
Okay, all right.
So one of the things, as I kind of make this point, the UK certainly hasn't cracked this. It's a work in progress. But I think in addition to these kind of bottom-up equipping, skilling, mentoring, networking initiatives, the thing that's been transformative in the UK has been an initiative that's been top-down. It's a structural intervention. So this was led by our first female chief medical officer, Dame Sally Davis. And so it's a charter. It's the Athena Swan Charter. There's Wikipedia pages on it, so you can have a look at this. But basically, it's a kind of an institutional or a department level star rating, gold, silver, bronze. And and this is looking at your plans, your data, the strategies that you're promoting or pursuing to try and promote gender equity. So what Sally did was she said that to be able to get government funding, you had to be at a minimum level on this plan. It was a silver rating. And that plan was in place for 15 years. So every higher education institution, whether they liked it or not, they had to play ball, and they had to play ball seriously. Now everybody's doing this, and actually I think most institutions are doing it seriously because they want to do it. And so that requirement has now gone. So I'm in the privileged position of having a department that's got a gold standard. And so I'm looking at the data that are coming in all of the time together with a team. That team, our team is led by a male, professor in the department. And so, I mean, I know the data on bullying, harassment, complaints, progress, the number of people applying, shortlisting, composition of panels, etc. And actually, on most of these things, we're doing incredibly well. The one thing I have to plug, or as a department we need to address, is the highest level of professorship at Oxford is the statutory professorship. There are very, very few females in those positions. So that is one that we are targeting now. But this is a kind of an institutional-wide play. It's part of a kind of a national fabric. It's the kind of thing that maybe the Health Education Commission could be doing in Pakistan, I don't know. But it is data-informed, and it sort of moves away from a kind of emotive discussion to a much more rational discussion.
Thank you. So I'll just, wrap this up and
just add to the media bit, because I feel very strongly about the media here in Pakistan as to what role they are presently playing, and perhaps we should change the narrative, because I don't know whether you see these dramas that we have on PTV and other channels and all that. The picture they paint of women, especially professional women, is very demeaning. And you have to change that narrative. And so perhaps we can start from here and raise awareness of the media themselves as to what is entailed in projecting women as potential positive contributors of society, rather than a burden, or rather than having to be put up with. So I feel very strongly about what role our media is presently playing, and I think that we should play a role in changing that. So,
Can I just make
Sure.
So I've done a lot of work with the media, mainly in the kind of UK context, but I've had a few exposures with sort of South Asian media. I find it really difficult, actually, because you've got these things scrolling at the top, at the bottom, everything is breaking, you've got these things spinning around, there's arguments happening, it's really difficult to have. So I think there's a whole piece around serious science journalism that needs to be done at some point. Maybe, Zulfi, this is the kind of next play, I don't know.
Anybody here from media right now?
There's one.
Love it. Anything you have to say for your community?
Hello. First of all, congratulations on such an amazing event. And I'm working as a creative in residence for Faculty of Arts and Sciences at Aga Khan University. And just because I was the one who reached out to FAS to come and talk about their new program. So yes, I work for radio, but I host the morning show on FM 100. My concern is, because I've been working for AKU now for past 4 months, that AKU is not out there to change the narrative, So many wonderful things going on inside of AKU, and AKU is doing so much. And it is just not one organization, there's so many associated. So why not reach out to more people and show your presence?
Right. Thank you. I think, thank you so much for your comments here, and thank you for the esteemed panelists for their contribution and for your great comments here. And with this, I'd like to give this panel a big round of applause. Thank you so much. So, over to you, Sudhams.
Thank you to our moderator and panelist. I now invite our chief guest, Ms. Shahnaz Wazir Ali, to deliver her remark titled Leadership for Social Justice, a Lifelong Commitment to Public Good.
This is forward. Next one is this. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Dr. Zulfikar Bhutta,
Dr. Rubina, other colleagues, professionals, young women researchers, young scientists, Assalamu alaikum. It's really a pleasure for me to be here today. This is not only a pleasure, it's a double, triple pleasure, because I see before me an auditorium full of 90% women. And that's just wonderful. It's a very rare occasion. And I think AKU is really to be congratulated for providing such a supportive environment, but much more so is Dr. Zulfikar Bhutta, for having thought of supporting women in science. It's, I think, probably the most unique program, at least I have not heard of one like this before, with the mentorships and the fellowships and the structure for women in early career science. And here are so many absolutely brilliant. I couldn't be here to hear all your presentations, but the few that I did see, I found that they were extremely pertinent and very relevant, particularly the HPV, because we know that the Sindh government has rolled out the HPV, and there has been, it was perhaps somewhat inadequately prepared for, and your research work showed how important it was for the groundwork to be done to make parents aware of the fact that this is not dangerous to their health, their daughter's health. So research has to be relevant. It has to be pertinent. It has to be contemporary also. It has to address the issues that Pakistani people face, society, mothers, children, young girls, families, parents, communities. So for me, when I read up about supporting women in science, Dr. Bhutta, I really was very, very impressed. And I think that your phased program, the way you presented the model, the structure, and your linkages with Yale and Michigan University and Johns Hopkins and several other top-notch universities, in addition to the partnership with Oxford University, of course, places this whole group of women who've been involved in this program at really an international world-class level. The other thing I found very distinctive was that we often talk about leadership, women in positions of leadership, but here we are talking about women in early career positions with enormous potential, enormous opportunities. And this is the platform that from which you really can almost, this is a springboard for you, because you have gone through a process where you have discovered a lot about yourself, and also you know that there's a mentorship and a fellowship program. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I also felt several thoughts went through my mind, because I'm not a scientist, and I'm not a doctor, and I'm not a health sector professional per se, because my degrees are in education. So when Dr. Zulfikar Bhutta was kind enough to contact me, I responded to him with a sense of hesitation, saying that I don't think I'm the right person to speak at an event like this, on an occasion like this, because here are many women who know so much more about science than I do. And so what can I say that would be of some value? But he said, well, you speak about education or the process of maximizing your potential. I also thought that my talks at various, and my experience, my life work, has been about the rights of women. Legal rights of women, political rights of women, economic rights of women, social rights of women, but it really hasn't been about the rights for certain critical pathways to success. And here, in a sense, is another whole area for those who talk about women's rights to take this up. The rights of women in professional life and professional careers, because these rights are curtailed. You don't have an even playing field often. You really have to face a lot of challenges, and we heard that from the panel here as well. So it has certainly, there's a penny that has dropped, Dr. Bhutta. And I'm going to begin to put this on the SDG 4, Goal 4, Sustainable Development Goal 4, gender equity, so that we're going to start talking about women in science. And hopefully in the future we'll talk about women in other professions as well. I have a presentation, but after I saw your presentation, I'm a little hesitant to show mine because it also has some data. But if you bear with me, I will go through it. The data is, I think, a little bit more current. It's from 2023 or so. And the first slide, of course, shows you Dr. Sabah. Dr. Sabah Hassan, who has she's been elected to a very prestigious position in America at the American College of Physicians. And if I'm not mistaken, she's probably one of very few women who've made it, and probably the only Pakistani woman, I think, who's made it. So Pakistani women are winners. They really are, and they do make it. It's a long struggle. It's a long haul. But here's an inspirational person. So looking again at the gender gap, I looked at it from a different lens. We know that there's a gender gap in practically every area of Pakistan's political, social, economic, and cultural life. But to look particularly at science, here I'm looking at some numbers that have come out of UNESCO. They're 2023. Equal opportunities, about 33% of global scientists are women. This number has increased over the years, but it should have been a bit higher. And this 33% of women in science at the global level are predominantly in the West. I don't have data on China, so I would put a big qualifier on this. I don't think that this is necessarily accurate global data, but it gives you a picture. One of the barriers, or one of the areas that this report identifies with respect to gender equity is that if there are more women involved in science, they contribute a great deal more to innovation. And they're more creative. And they drive creativity into their programs. And certainly also they do incorporate, this slide is not showing it, but they incorporate IT and technology pretty much as fast and as ably as men are incorporating technology into their work streams. There are still many challenges. This is the workforce. I think you showed this number. I think your number is a little lower, Dr. Bhutta, but this is the number 33. And again, this is global. The research grants, I think, are a matter of concern because why should women not have a higher percentage of, as awardees of research grants? So that's where there's a very significant barrier, and there are some reasons for it. Fewer citations. I don't quite know why women would have fewer citations, except if you say 33% of the women are getting research grants, then that means there are obviously fewer citations because they're just 33%. But it was not described like that. They said altogether in the publications that, research publications of women, they tend to be fewer citations. Now that is something for academia to look at. They also have lower visibility. And I think you have attended many conferences where you see a whole panel of men. You'll see predominantly men sitting in the first row and in the second row. You'll see predominantly men in leadership positions. You'll see predominantly men sharing sessions in many conferences. So just visibility is something I think we really all can actively promote. There's, of course, underrepresentation, and you have talked about it. Reduced career progression, reduced influence and decisions, and there are several implicit biases that women face. The UNESCO call for action, I think you're somewhat familiar with it. This is, I think, very pertinent to the women scientists sitting here, because this is about women in research, and I would strongly suggest you you may want to take a look at this report because it is very recent, 2024. I think you've seen all the major areas out there. Won't take so much of your time going through them, but I would urge you to take a look at it. There are a number of regional disparities, of course, in science, technology, and I'm not talking just about the health sector here. As you can see, this is the broader canvas of science in other countries. Malaysia also has problems, unequal access to resources, policy influence. Sri Lanka has barriers, technical leadership in science and engineering. Korea also seems to have several barriers, particularly in STEM. Places like Uzbekistan, new states, also have lower female entry into core areas of technology and engineering. And so there are several other countries in our region. We are not alone in facing these barriers. There are structural barriers. I want to talk a little bit about this for a minute. Education entry, often in our discussions on women in science, we perhaps don't talk about school culture. By that I mean the fact that our curriculum at the school level, right from primary through secondary and into intermediate, does not emphasize science as a core and central area, neither science nor mathematics. If you look at a timetable of the education of schools, we teach Islamiyat every single year, class 1 to 10, 2 years in intermediate, 4 years in undergraduate, and now HEC is saying that we should have Islamiyat teaching in master's level programs as a compulsory. Now, I'm not saying that there should be no Islamiyat taught, but I think there should be some sort of balance in the timetable and in the way the curriculum is organized, where students get more time for science, more time for math, more time for subjects like environmental science and climate change when they get into secondary and post-secondary education. But our school curriculum is heavily tilted towards, in Sindhi, Urdu, then English, and as I said, Islamiyat, and understanding of Quran is the second subject that has been introduced. So, you know, there's limited time, and in that time you have to be able to make sure that your students are getting what they need in order to move forward in the area of science and mathematics. Now, either we stretch the school day longer, or we boost the science programs a great deal more. Otherwise, science is will continue to be undervalued. These are some eminent women. There are Pakistani women who've made it to very prestigious positions nationally, internationally. And I just show some of these pictures just to point out once again that there are women, and we know there are many, many more than this, who are heading institutions. So 46% of science students in higher education are women. This is something we were referring to earlier, that if there's such a high number, 46% in higher education, what happens to them afterwards? I think that's the central question. What is happening to these women who are getting qualified, doing outstanding work, achieving high academic marks and results, and then they're not continuing? Female researchers in science, of course, there's a lower representation in engineering and technology, strong presence in medical and natural sciences, which you can see. You always see that, more women in the area of medical sciences and health. And the impact, I think, of the narrower entry level in other areas of science is something that needs to be addressed as well. So this is where women drop off. Strong entry into STEM, drop off due to limited mentoring and funding. That's why I found your project very important, very relevant, and very critical. You've picked up exactly where the gaps are, and you're supporting them in that. In industry roles, also there's underrepresentation because it's very gender stereotyped. Also in leadership and decision making, culture and family pressures, Dr. Diaz spoke about it. Policy actions are needed. And I think that's a very big challenge for us, that when you come to the policy table at the higher levels, there isn't much talk about women in science. If you were to listen to the debate in the National Assembly or the Senate or the Provincial Assembly, where lawmakers sit, or cabinet decisions, just do a scan of cabinet decisions for the last 5 years. You will hardly ever find significant decisions being taken or policy decisions being taken in the area on science, leadership, women, and dealing with structural barriers, trying to remove structural barriers. So it really isn't making it into the policy dialogue. Here are some strategies that are being used in different parts of the world. They're not anything brilliant. I just think that there needs to be a greater push in Pakistan for this, to make sure that there's funding equity particularly, and that institutional biases are removed, that doors do open, and that also that there are formal leadership development programs. So I just wanted to share a few things with you. I think gender equality boosts innovation a lot, diversity, new solutions, and has greater impact. STEM is improving, but Pakistan is still lagging behind. We do need context-specific solutions, and there are role models. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we need to start quoting data everywhere if we want to build a strong, not a campaign, but a strong attention-getting strategy, so that leadership looks at data and begins to see that they really need to take some supportive action. I would just leave it at that. I love it when I see a lot of photographs when women are just in the screen. Lots of women are on the screen. And there is, I think, in some ways, you can say, almost a silent revolution taking place across Pakistan, where more and more women are entering, but we don't really have the data on them all. But even so, Pakistan needs to give this a very strong push. And I'm delighted to be here today. Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak on this area.
Thank you very much, Madam, for your thoughtful remarks. Together with Ms. Shahnaz, I invite Dr. Bhutta on stage to present the mementos to our mentors. May I request all mentors to kindly come forward when their names are announced. Dr. Ambreen Fatma, Dr. Asad Ali, Dr. Ashar Malik, Dr. Athar Inam, Dr. Bushra Mois, Dr. Junaid Iqbal, Dr. Muhammad Wasi, Dr. Murad Musa Khan, Dr. Narjis Asad, Dr. Rosina Karmaliani, Dr. Salman Kirmani, Dr. Sana Sayyed, okay.
Because several of them are not here.
I think we are done. We would like to present a token of our appreciation to our chief guest, Ms. Shahnaz Wazir Ali. May I kindly request Dr. Bhutta to please present. And I would also like to invite Dean Dr. Kareem Damji. Thank you, Dr. Damji, Dr. Bhutta, and Ms. Shahnaz for gracing our seminar with your presence. I would now like to invite Dr. Kareem Damji. I would like to invite Dr. Shelina Bhamani to please come on stage and receive your memento.
Are there any other mentors that we may have missed? If not, then we'll give it to you individually. Let's proceed with Dean Bhamani's.
I would now like to invite Dr. Kareem Damji to deliver the closing remarks. Dr. Damji is the inaugural chair of the Department of Ophthalmology and Visual Sciences at Aga Khan University, Karachi, and a globally recognized glaucoma specialist. Trained in Canada and the United States, he completed fellowships in ocular pathology, ophthalmic genetics, and glaucoma, and holds an executive MBA from Queen's University. He previously served as professor at the universities of Ottawa and Alberta, including 7 years of department chair, and has led national professional societies in ophthalmology. His research spans stem cells therapy, technology-enabled eye care, micro-invasive glaucoma surgery, and innovative subspecialty training models in sub-Saharan Africa. Dr. Damji has authored over 190 peer-reviewed publications and senior editor of the Shields textbook of glaucoma, and has been honored for excellence in teaching, research, humanism, and global health. Please welcome Dr. Damji.
Bahut shukriya for that very generous introduction, and Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Dr. Zulfikar Bhutta, Shahnaz Wazir Ali, and I think Dean Salima was here, but I see so many distinguished women leaders, but to all of you as well, Assalamu alaikum and good evening. And I hope these past 1.5 to 2 days have proved to be of immense, inshallah, learning, value, scholarship, networking, so many benefits. And it's an honor as Dean for the Medical College to close this year's Women in Science event. And it's an occasion that celebrates excellence, but also reaffirms our collective commitment to pluralism, equity, opportunity, and scientific leadership. And you know, it really is a remarkable achievement to have this program going for the last 3 years. And it's an initiative, of course, designed to address inequities in academia and research. And you know, these can have consequences far beyond the individual, of course, to the institution, to society, as many speakers have mentioned. But I also appreciate what our provost was saying and what Shahnaz was saying, that look, when it comes to asking questions and when it comes to health needs and addressing and prioritizing those, shaping what knowledge emerges and the analysis and ultimately policy, there's many, many positive aspects when women are involved, and it becomes so important. And we're very fortunate at AKU that, alhamdulillah, with the vision of the Chancellor, much progress has been made. At the Medical College, you know, many of our students, the vast majority, are actually women. And of course, in our faculty, as well as in the chair group, at least half are women as well. So I think that's a very positive landmark, alhamdulillah. So when it comes to research, I know that many of the presenters and the students that have been presenting have covered topics including maternal and child health, climate change, infectious disease, cancer, nutrition, biomarkers. And so these are not just small questions, but actually are very pressing challenges of our time. So I just want to commend all of you that have been presenting, but particularly the students. Let's give them a big round of applause. So I'm very pleased to see this movement towards a more scientific, representative community, a more just community, and addressing various barriers and challenges. And I think it demonstrates that when women are engaged and given equitable access to learning, to mentorship, to funding opportunities, they not only excel, but they actually lead. And I just am reminded here of a message from our founding chancellor on the 40th anniversary of AKU. And I'll just quote this briefly. He says, "Diversity is a blessing rather than a burden, and that half the world's talent at least lies in the minds of women." So I just want to acknowledge all the faculty mentors, the steering committee, the science supporting women in leadership, and science, whose dedication has shaped this program. And I extend heartfelt congratulations to all the fellows today, because all of you are representing advancement in your fields, but also defining who gets to be a scientist, who gets to lead in research, the work that informs the next generation. And so I look forward to seeing where your science, your courage, and your leadership will take you. And thank you again, and congratulations to all of you for being part of this event and this movement and making it all possible. And Mubarak again, Dr. Bhutta, and to the entire team for putting this on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Damti. To formally conclude the Swiss seminar, I now invite Dr. Bhavita Kumari to deliver the vote of thanks. She leads the Supporting Women in Science and Prepare projects at the Institute for Global Health and Development. Please welcome Dr. Bhavita Kumari.
Thank you, Kanza. I won't take so long because I know it's like the end time. Everybody needs to go home. It's 5 p.m. I would just start with thanking everyone, including our chief guest, Ms. Shanaz Wazir Ali, first of all. Just to let you know, I still have my class 1 prize distribution picture from Nasser School with you. So, yeah. And Mr. Sultan Ali Alana, who's not here, but thank you. So, also our chief guest from yesterday, Mr. Sultan Ali Alana, who also shared his insights with us yesterday. We are also very deeply thankful to our keynote speakers and the panelists who shared insights from their journeys, as well as our session chairs who were very professionally taking along the whole day with us. To the fellows from cohort 1 and cohort 2 who presented their work, thank you so much for your journeys and your presentations. I also want to thank everyone who supported me in arrangement of this event, and gladly it was a smooth event. Thank you to the conference secretariat, IT team, Amna Wazir from conference, Harun, Manzoor, AV, security, housekeeping, hospitality staff, IT teams, and everybody who bared with us. And especially to our MCs, just a fun fact, the MC from yesterday is a 19-year-old kid. And the MCs from today are our cohort 3 and 4 fellows who we thought should get the shine today to lead this event. And then now coming to the program. Thank you everyone for the Swiss community, the fellows who have been with us for 2.5 to 3 years now. The perseverance has been very excellent, bearing with us, having the patience throughout our procedures. Special thanks to our mentors, without which the program would have not been successful. The peer reviewers, who followed the deadlines and were very kind to send us the reviews as we requested them. And then special thanks to the Swiss core team, which includes the previous managers, Masuma Raza, Zara Padani, Narjis Fatma, some of you guys know them, right? And then the grants administration team, which includes first and foremost Mutiur Rahman, and now we have Safan also joining us there. Along with them, the finance, legal, and the administration team from IGHT, that includes Akbar, Abbas Jafar, Mohammad Siddiq, Mr. Barkat Ali. Without their support, I wouldn't be standing here probably. Apart from that, of course, the leadership and vision of Dr. Bhutta, Dr. Jaidas, and our partners from University of Oxford, Professor Stephen Kennedy, Professor Hos Villar. Their guidance has structured this program along with the steering committee women that you saw on the slides. Without these women, I don't think we could have designed a program which was suitable for women. Thank you, everyone. And also the AKU leadership, Mr. President, Ms. Avam Provost, Dean Damji, everyone, thank you so much for supporting this program and these events. That's it on my side. I would request everyone to join us for a group picture with the fellows, and after which we can break for the tea. Thank you so much. Yes, let's do it here. And cohort 3 and cohort 4, whoever is here. Yes, some of them are here.